I've had my Krytac Trident AEGs for close to 5 years now. And in today's video, we're taking a look at my history with the platform and why they're still my go-to workhorse. Let's get started. But real quick, if you're looking to try out a brand new airsoft field, might I suggest my airsoft field, Wild West Acres. We're having our next game day August 16th, and we'd love to have you out. Link in the description to find out more on my field. You might also ask, Waves, you have more than one Krytac Trident? Yes, I do, dear audience viewer. Funny story, taking this blaster out for a few rounds, I actually ended up getting some rain in it, which made the blaster cease to function. So, at the time, I was working so often, and I had enough extra cash on hand that I decided to pick up longer barrel version, the SPR. But the story is also to say that as well built as these guys are, they're not invincible, and you shouldn't treat them as such. Over the years, I've still taken mine to plenty of techs and made sure that it was functioning properly and tried to do a couple upgrades here and there to make sure it's running. In fact, you might notice on mine, there's quite a few parts missing in various areas and stuff, and that's simply because I've just kind of lost it over the years. Suffice to say, I'm really hard on my AAGs, so I need one that is tough. These guys have slid down hills with me, been to one of the muddiest Civil War events in recent memory, and overall have just taken a beating over the years, and they keep on trucking. Originally, I got these because I was tired of going to games and just having to mess with my airsoft blaster. I was tired of getting partway through a game, and all of a sudden the hop-up starts sending BBs going in random directions. I was tired of getting gearbox lockup, so my friends at the time suggested that I try out a Trident, and safe to say, I got my wish in terms of a reliable blaster. Cut to years later, and these still run consistently well for me. I have very few issues, and if I just need something that works, and I just need a guarantee that it's going to work at a new game, this is oftentimes my go-to. Even better, they get BBs out there accurately, they accept a large variety of mags, and they just keep on trucking. So why is it that these guys just kind of keep on? I'm going to be honest, I don't know for sure. Part of it is that I do the occasional upkeep on these guys, which has helped over the years, but also I have to do that on a lot less regular of a basis than I do for any of my other AEGs. My theory is that these guys are built like tanks. Seriously, they're very heavy. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that as I kind of bounce it around, which means there's a thick amount of metal coating all the gearbox and all the internals, which I think means there's less force transferred to the inside, which I think keeps things running and tighter for longer. On both these, I've even tried to put on different handguards and different stocks and stuff just to kind of see if I could lighten that weight up and to see if I liked it. But nothing actually ever quite worked as well as these. I think they're called Defiance. Yeah, Defiance TR113 rails is what they label them as. Seriously, they're rock solid. This feels like I'm just holding like a metal rod. There's not a lot of wobble. The only wobble really is in the stock. Seriously, these are just solid. I do have to deal with key mod, which is kind of annoying, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal if you just get key mod accessories, and there's still a pretty big aftermarket for those. Moving on to the stock, I also really like the original stock these come with. This one actually has its back cap popped off because I kind of lost my back cap a while ago. Good news about having duplicates though, I still have one that I kind of swap in between. But seriously, I really like this stock. It's actually got a lot of battery room on it, which is quite nice, and you can see how easily it pops off after I've used it over the years. Taking this out, let's see what I got in here. I got a stick type battery in here, but that's one of the other things I really like about this is you actually kind of have like three main battery slots you can pop your batteries into, provided the wires don't intersect. You can fit a lot in here. In fact, what I've actually done at times too is taken a couple of these smaller brick type batteries and held one in each stock, left all of them unplugged except for the one that I was using, so I can actually just swap batteries on the fly, which is another major benefit of the stock. There's a fuse that it comes with, which I've kind of even replaced the fuse itself. I just haven't bothered to really bypass the fuse. You don't really need it, but it is there, and it has led to some kind of issues taking the stock off when I go to disassemble. Speaking of what goes inside, though, what makes these as accurate as they are? And from what I've observed, it is down to the nozzle, the hop-up chamber, and the bucking. And one of the things I love, first off, is the actual hop-up unit. This hop-up unit, it spins, it clicks, which you might not think is that big of a deal, but it really makes a difference so you can feel how much pressure you're putting on that hop-up arm. The other thing is if you zoom in really, really close, you can actually see a number on there. I really like this number because on occasion I'll switch from like, say, 0.30 to 0.32 BBs, depending on what I have, and just knowing in my head what's the proper hop setting for each one can really help me dial that in on the field really, really fast. Another really nice thing about that too is if you decide to overhop for part of the longer range areas of the field, that can help you get your BBs out a little bit further. But a problem with an overhop is once you back into a slightly closer range, BBs start flying over people's heads. So knowing that, you can actually take this, click it down, and bring it back to a position where those hot BBs aren't flying over people's heads, which is super nice. Going in a little bit further, their nozzle seems to have really good air seal. It's not a O-ring nozzle to my knowledge, but you don't get a lot of air leakage coming out of the nozzle itself. And finally, I think the most magical part of this blaster's accuracy comes down to the bucking. The Krytac orange bucking is a toothed bucking that grips the BB super well, puts a lot of good backspin on it, and it does it really accurately. In fact, that's actually part of kind of the secret sauce, I would say, having looked at the guts of this blaster. I've seen people even able to hop up to 0.36s with this without very much issue, which means you're also able to use heavyweight BBs, which adds a lot to the accuracy factor. Finally, though, that's not to say I haven't had my fair share of issues with these. While the heaviness is a benefit, especially if you like realism, but what I tend to find is I'm mounting cameras. I do airsoft YouTube, which means I want to have things on top of my blaster, which kind of help me record. The problem is having any extra weight on this heavy duty rail means that you're actually weighing yourself down a lot. You find yourself kind of doing one of these these low readies a lot more than really where you should be, which is a high ready for the bad guys. I do kind of wish they found a way to make these a little bit more lightweight, but also they're really sturdy, so you kind of have a little bit of a balance. It also means if you want to go with heavier weight accessories like an underslung launcher, which I have, you're going to run into more problems with the weight and just holding on to the thing. Slings become extra important when that occurs. Depending on how I edit this video, I might have mentioned it earlier, but getting the buffer tube and the buffer tube screw out is a little bit of a pain. I've had to find basically a dedicated super long screwdriver to do so, and even then it starts to get kind of tangled and caught up on that fuse that they decided to put on the back here. You might want to rewire that upon getting yours. Over the years, I have lost some air seal on the insides, which originally with this guy, what I did was I put a heavier weight spring in to compensate for that, to boost it back up. And it functioned for a surprisingly really good amount of time that way. But recently what I did was I went in, I replaced the O-rings, I added some lubrication, I sealed it up a little bit better, and it holds onto its air seal a lot better. Recently I took this to a CQB field, so I lowered the spring tension on it, which means that now this guy's shooting it close to like half a joule. It's really low. I'm not really worried about hitting people in CQB with this. It's probably going to go back up later at some point, but I don't feel like taking it apart right now. So I just want to have this longer SPR that I can kind of take to outdoor fields and use as more of a long range option. Also, if I want a dedicated rifleman, my P90 is hitting right at that 400 FPS limit, and that guy's got a really cool trigger on it, which means I'm kind of set for all the ranges that I really want to use stuff at. So guys, what do you think? You had experience with the Krytac Trident AEGs or even other Krytacs? I want to hear what you guys think in those comments down below. Also, finally, remember, we're having our next game August 16th. I'd love to see you there. Have a great day. Don't be a cheater. And that's all, folks.